Hi,
Good
Congresswoman.
morning.
How's everything?
Wonderful. It's good to be back in Wyoming.
Good. Yeah, I saw you having a picnic on the White House grounds, and I thought that's not a Wyoming picnic. I saw you post photos. You were hanging out with some great Wyoming people, some youth, some youngsters from Wyoming. What were they? Award-winning the National History Day kids and congressional award winners. So at least you were in comfort of some fellow Wyomingites.
And one young woman who was here was in D.C. representing 4-H. So yes, I was at the White House picnic last night, caught an airplane. I think that we left at 9 something and I got home about 2:30 this morning.
Wow. All right. So I wanted to talk about a lot of things with you, and some of it concerns your work on the Natural Resources Committee chaired by Representative Bruce Westerman. Is Chairman Westerman going to join us? I don't see him yet.
I thought that he was,
Okay.
Jake. My understanding was we were both going to be on with you today.
All right. I'll keep an eye out for him.
Okay.
But until then, now this is... You're reappointed. You were on this committee before. Things must be going well because Chairman Westerman appointed you to a subcommittee. Talk about that. What it's like being on this committee second go around, and now you're on the subcommittee concerning water and other stuff in the West.
So yes, this is my second term on natural resources, and I believe that it's very important for Wyoming's representative to be on a committee such as the Natural Resources Committee. I'm chairman of Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries, and that accounts for about 50% or more of the work that the Natural Resources Committee does, just because that obviously has everything to do from NOAA to the wildlife aspect of things, the Endangered Species Act and fisheries, what we're dealing with in terms of international waters. One of the things that we have discussed over the last couple of years and that I've been working on with Bruce is illegal fishing in our oceans. And China is been a terrible violator of international mores, if you will, and it can wreak havoc on particular areas of the globe. The vast majority of people in the world, their only source of protein is fish. And so we definitely have to protect that resource and make sure that nobody is engaging in illegal fishing.
Important work on the committee for sure. Tell me about your recent trip. That's what I really wanted to get at. Your committee members recently visited Japan, Taiwan, Korea, some of these Asian markets. I was surprised to learn about a third of the U.S. liquid natural gas is exported to Asian nations. We know that a lot of folks, including in Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, where you visited, are hungry for Wyoming coal and other energy that Wyoming exports. What was your big takeaway? What did you learn on that trip?
So I was very honored to be invited. There were 5 members that went on this trip. And yes, we went to Japan, Taiwan, and South and North Korea. We actually went to the DMZ zone, DMZ, the demilitarized zone, on our last day that we were there, which was incredibly interesting, especially when you can compare an open and free society to a communist regime that's been behind not just one iron curtain, but several iron curtains for decades now. What I would describe this is that this was a trade trip. They want our energy. Japan has numerous coal-fired power plants that they have built just in the last several years. So while you've got Germany and some of Europe taking the wrong-headed approach of trying to go to net zero or carbon negative and that sort of thing, that is not where these Asian countries are going, because they know that it is the death knell of their countries, their freedom, their prosperity, everything. So I've kind of joked a little bit that Taiwan would sure be happy to take on the role of being the 51st state if we would do that. They want our energy. They want our defenses. Right now, they obviously are dependent on China to a limited extent and also the Middle East, but they want to turn east. They want to turn to us. They want to turn to the Pacific coast. So one of the gentlemen who was with us on the trip is Nick Begich from Alaska, and they're working on constructing an LNG pipeline, hopefully a project that we can start sooner rather than later. Right now, we export LNG to the Far East, and we take it out of the ports in Louisiana, but it takes over 40 days because they have to go through the Panama Canal. So they would love to see more infrastructure built towards the west. They want our coal. They know it's clean coal. When I was visiting with the guy from Taiwan, I talked about our livestock and that we're a big cattle state. And he says, we'll buy it. We'll buy it all. We'll buy it all. So they want our goods.
Yeah. And getting stuff there. I mean, Governor Gordon's been talking about that as well. How do you get it there? Asia, steady consumer of U.S. energy. Including, I'm surprised that you visited North Korea. Did you promise them to export some good old Wyoming nuclear power in the form of a missile from the Warren Air Force Base, or no?
That is a very bizarre place to visit, because when you look into North Korea, we went over to where there's actually the buildings where they have essentially the standoff, the North Korean soldiers on one side and the Allied forces, the UN forces, including a lot of American soldiers on the south side. And we could see into the country, not overly clearly, but we could see that they were working the fields. And I saw a tractor. I was using the telephoto lens on my camera, and we saw a tractor over there. It was painted green, but I can assure you John Deere would not claim it as it is its own. You know, this thing was retrofitted and rebuilt and retrofitted and roofs added and all kinds of things, but it was the only piece of mechanized equipment that we saw. These folks are astoundingly poor. As you know, if you look from satellite imagery at night, they don't have lights. The entire area goes dark. I mean, it really is a tragedy that these people have had to live in these conditions for so long. And then you go to Seoul, South Korea, and oh my gosh, what an incredible city. Vibrant, exciting, innovative, the technology, the companies that are there. And again, they're all looking to America. They want to trade with America. They want to be a part of the freedom-loving democratic West. That's what they want. And so we need to make sure that we're keeping those lines open.
Let's kind of bounce around with the headlines and stick with me, if you will. H.R. 4, Rescissions Act of 2025, just passed by the House. Good news, huh?
Yes, it is. $9.4 billion. And this is just, I hope, the first of many. I'm suggesting that we do several of these a week. They don't have to be big. It might be $30 million. It might be $100 million, but it's saving the American taxpayer money, and it's not being wasted on things that we don't want to spend money on. This first tranche was related to a lot of the things that we've read about USAID. It's also NPR and PBS. And, you know, I've had several people, not a lot, but I've had a few people in my office saying, we really would like to keep NPR. We really do want to keep this. And I've said to them, you know, I've driven around Wyoming listening to NPR, because there are many times, especially in past years, where that was almost the only radio station that you could get. But it has become an incredibly politicized organization. And you cannot continue to expect that you're going to be able to get federal funds when you've taken one side of when you've picked a team and you've picked a team that's not the team that's in power right now. And they have the money. The fact is that NPR does fundraisings almost on a daily basis. When I try to watch TV or listen, it's just kind of a constant bombardment of please send us more money. If people believe that this is something that is important to stand up, they can pay for it.
How about EVs? President Trump just signed a trio of new laws that would toss out the de facto California mandate to phase out gas-powered vehicles by 2035. Is this good news? I mean, you notice what Trump didn't do is sign something saying you must buy a gas car. It's just giving you the choice if you wanted to buy a gas-powered vehicle.
So the problem with California is that because of the size of the market, it can have such an enormous impact on our country. And there's about 10 states around the country that have been stupid enough, and I use that word intentionally because this is absolutely the height of ignorance, in my opinion, and an abdication of responsibility, where these state legislators have actually passed laws that whatever California does, they will follow suit. So that's why you're always seeing battles in Virginia. Even when you have conservative leadership there, their agencies are forced to implement policies coming out of California that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. So it does have a huge impact when California goes down the wrong road of attempting to ban the internal combustion engine. If you want to turn us into North Korea, that would probably be your first step. If you want to turn us into an astoundingly poor just die, if you want to create a dire situation, take away our ability to manufacture and use vehicles with internal combustion engines. I mean, we're talking about one of the inventions that drug us out of poverty in such a short period of time in a way that's unrivaled in human history, and that's the target that California has. In this headlong approach, kind of what Germany's done. They want to deindustrialize. They want to take away our freedom of movement. And so, yes, I was very excited. That actually originated in the Senate. We voted on it in the House, and it's now law. And California does not have the ability to ban internal combustion engine vehicles.
States pledging blindly by law to follow California. It doesn't sound like a good blueprint, good plan. You've probably barely had a peek under the hood of Interior Secretary Doug Berman's huge 2026 budget request for the Department of Interior. Any first initial thoughts on it?
So he was in front of the Natural Resource Committee 2 days ago. I think today's Friday, and it was on Wednesday that he was before our Natural Resource Committee. I thought that he did a good job defending what the agency is doing. And what I'm very proud of these agencies and the agency heads for is that they're actually talking about cutting back the size and scope of their agencies and the authority of their agencies and returning some of this power to the states. So this is something that I have advocated for years. I will continue to advocate for, but he does have a reduction in the budget going forward for the fiscal year 2026. I focused on a couple of things with him. One was we want to work with him to get the grizzly bear delisted. We have the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem grizzly bear has recovered. It has been recovered for over 2 decades, over 20 years. There are people in college now that were born after we recovered the grizzly bear, but we still cannot get it delisted. So he is committed to working with us on that. The other thing is that 44% of our eagle kills in the state of Wyoming are because of wind turbines. And we have to find a better way to deal with this. I'm not a huge fan, as people know, of intermittent, unreliable, and unaffordable energy. I'm just not. But in addition, there are these kinds of secondary impacts that have got to be addressed. He said that that is something that they are looking into. We know that President Trump is not a fan of that energy either. You know, and one of the things people need to understand is that it misdirects assets away from our utility companies being able to maintain and operate the infrastructure we need to have reliable and affordable energy. So people can kind of look at it as a vanity project and say, well, yeah, but when the wind's blowing, it's free and it's great and it's this and it's that. It's not. There are serious opportunity costs associated with taking your resources, say it's $100, and misdirecting 50 to 60 of that to intermittent power when you need all $100 to actually operate the reliable system that you have. And that's why you've got to look at the opportunity costs of these things. So he is willing to again work with us on this issue of the eagle kills, the bird kills, to try to prevent that. And we need to look at the overall policy as well. So yes, I have not had a chance to study his budget extensively, but I'm proud of the work they're doing.
We're talking with U.S. Congresswoman Representative Harriet Hageman. 2 more things, Congresswoman. Let's go out to California. Let's go to the left coast. Peaceful demonstration or attack on law and order? What's going on in L.A.?
Attack on law and order. And the point that I make about this is I'm one of your biggest advocates for freedom of speech. But when you read the First Amendment, it says peaceably assemble and freedom of speech. Violence is not speech, and speech is not violence. You don't get to torch EVs in the middle of the vehicle and attack our officers, whether our local officers or ICE agents, whomever it is. You don't get to attack them and claim it's freedom of speech. You want to stand on a corner and yell until your heart's content? Have at it. I'm perfectly fine with that. You don't get to throw rocks. You don't get to throw cinder blocks. You don't get to use weapons against them. That is not freedom of speech. This is clearly not grassroots or organic. This is being funded. We are tracking down. The administration is tracking down the source of this funding, and I think that they need to bring RICO actions against them for conspiring to violate the law. They have arrested some people who were dropping off materials and shields and things like that. We've seen them pull up in U-Haul trailers and hand out, those garbage can shields that they use, different things. Then they put cardboard over the front of them to make it look like it's some kind of an organic type of shield when it's actually made out of metal. So no, this is not organic. This is not acceptable. This isn't the way we deal with things in this country.
Crazy. Hard to believe it's America. We got to get together. One more thing. I'm glad you noticed this. I saw it on your socials. I noticed it. I don't know why it's not a bigger story. Not one incident, but two incidents of Chinese nationals caught smuggling things into University of Michigan. There was an terrorism weapon, toxic fungus in one instance, and there was roundworm in another instance. If these are not the CCP at work, it certainly gives them a blueprint for how do you harm the U.S. from within. This is disturbing.
It is scary stuff because they are attacking our food supply or potentially attacking our food supply. And this has always been one of my biggest fears in terms of our policies toward China and allowing the number of unvetted foreign students and scientists into our country. It's obviously a bioweapon. And we saw it in Montana with leafy splurge. Leafy splurge was an invasive species. It was somehow released out into the ether, if you will. It absolutely destroyed their pastures. I mean, it was devastating to our ranchers in Montana when they had the outbreak of leafy splurge. Here in Wyoming, we have cheatgrass, which obviously displaces grass that is good for livestock consumption. So it's something that is incredibly frightening, but it was why we always needed to be honest about what happened in Wuhan. You can't cover up what happened in Wuhan and then pretend that we're going to be able to protect ourselves either individually from this kind of a biohazard or protect our ability to raise and protect our livestock and our crops. We always needed to be honest about Wuhan because that was just one example of where the CCP, with funding from the United States of America through EcoHealth Alliance, they were studying the COVID viruses, and it escaped. And we know that. That has been established. And the FBI believes that. The CIA believes that. Anybody with a lick of sense knew it from the beginning. But that's why they never should have been allowed to shove this under the rug, because this is just one more of those types of pathogens that could be absolutely devastating, not only to America, but worldwide in terms of our food supply.
Congresswoman Harriet Hageman, who's vigilantly protecting this country from bad actors around the globe and protecting us from our own government at times, government overreach. I love the work you do.